So a lot of you might have heard about the racist heckler at Cpac. His name is Terry, and it's Scott Terry. And he defended slavery and said, hey, look, blacks got food and shelter. What are they complaining about? Basically, you're about to see the tape for yourself, so I don't need to paraphrase it. Well, actually, what we've got now is the fuller, more unedited, longer, and clearer tape of exactly what went down. You'll see Kim Brown jump in there at some point and challenge him on that. You'll get the full context of it. And then I want to tell you what happened with Kim Brown later when she tried to ask a question. So now, the reason we give you all this is because some right-wingers have said, oh, no, you guys are being unfair. The crowd did not necessarily support him. Cpac doesn't necessarily support him, etc. So let's take a look at the video ourselves.
Scott Terry from North Carolina. I appreciate your method, but I have a few.
Sure.
I don't think you've addressed some of my considerations.
Okay.
So maybe you could.
What's that?
I'll lay them out. Maybe you could talk about
Okay.
it. It seems to me like you're reaching out to voters, your method, your program that you're offering us, at the expense of young white Southern males like myself, my demographic. I study literature, English literature and stuff, and as I read about the past, I really came to love my people and my culture.
Okay.
And that, I know that's anathema. I mean, I know that's
no, it isn't.
bad to say.
That's
So
okay.
said
Yeah.
It's
So,
okay.
so my question would be, I mean, I feel like my people, my demographic, are being systematically disenfranchised.
Okay.
And furthermore, you know, people like the lady over here in the red shirt applauded and said, "Yay, that's good." My problem is, why can't we be more like Booker T. Washington Republicans and his famous statement that let's be unified like a hand, but separate like the fingers?
Okay. The question is, why can't we be more unified like Booker T. Washington Republicans versus Frederick Douglass? They call Booker T. Washington second to Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was the originator. Okay. So when you study Douglass, Douglass was not.
How about the unity and diversity?
What about it?
Why
Douglass talked about that.
Why can't we
Here's an example.
diverse? Why
Here's
can't we
an example. When Douglass escaped from slavery, I think 10 years or 20 years after he escaped from slavery, he writes a letter to his former slave master and said, "I forgive you for all the things you did to me."
Forgiving him shelter, food, all those.
No. Listen, wait a minute now.
I'm serious.
Wait now. You just said. Wait. No. Wait, sir. Let me be honest. Let me address your first question. Yes, let me address your first question. I'm going to move on.
I'll let people throw stuff.
Well, you said
I
something.
love my people. What's wrong, sir?
That's all right. That's all right. I'm one of your people.
Let me address this. Let me see.
Slavery is not a benefit to black people.
Okay, listen up.
Listen up.
Let's go on.
Discussion about also what happened in Wayne Factory.
Let me address this, please.
Hey,
Please don't.
Let me address this thing.
Hey, Carl, if I can just
We can talk about it.
folks, I love the passion on especially on this topic. It's fantastic. But the presentation is not necessarily meant to be a debate.
That's right.
And the questions are certainly welcome.
So that's amazing. Now, the African-American woman you saw there in the exchange is Kim Brown. It was documentary filmmaker Katy Jordan who provided the longer clip. It's going to be part of filmmaker Kevin Dotz's forthcoming documentary called Black Tea. And the full context is really interesting because, you know, you hear some noise in the room and obviously some are objecting to what Scott Terry said. But it appears that some were actually supporting him. In fact, that man in the back is not yelling at him, he's yelling at Kim Brown. Now, if you saw there, Terry said that slaves were provided food and shelter by their masters. Are they not merciful? And that why can't we be segregated, right? Now, what's really interesting is the context because K. Carl Smith, who's the host speaker that you see there, afterwards told TPM, Talking Points Memo, that he was rudely interrupted, not by Scott Terry, by Kim Brown. He blamed Kim Brown for what happened there. He said that he later went and had a conversation with Terry and that, quote, we left as friends. So he's friends with Scott Terry, but not friends with Kim Brown, who was rude. And then here's where it gets really interesting. Benji Sarlin, reporter for TPM, was at the event, and he says that Kim Brown later got up to ask a question. And when she did, she first prefaced it, being honest, said, I'm not a conservative. And it was immediately booed down. They told her there was yells of, according to Sarlin, yells of shut up, no one wants to hear your question. etc. And there were boos, and it took her a long time to get the question out. And we've asked the filmmakers and others have to see if we can get that question on tape as well, right? Because that gives you the important context. Scott Terry was not booed down. There was rumblings, some pro, some con, etc. But overall, like, oh, interesting. Yeah, maybe we should go back to segregation. Right. Interesting point about slavery and how the slaves had it so good. Kim Brown, oh, you're not a conservative? Boo, boo. So it's not like they couldn't boo people down. He said, Scott Terry did in the middle of his speech, I guess people are going to want to throw things at me. But nobody did. Nobody shouted him down. He was allowed to speak and make another point. There was nothing thrown at him. Kim Brown, I'm not a conservative. Boo, get out of here. Nobody wants to hear you. Look, it doesn't necessarily represent the rest of Cpac. It certainly doesn't necessarily represent all the Republicans in the country. That's crazy, right? But that room right there at Cpac seemed much more open to that guy who was clearly racist than the woman who just wanted to make a comment and said the preface of, I'm not a conservative. So it appears, at least in that room, racists are a lot more welcome than non-conservatives. That's not a good sign for a party that claims they want to open up and reach minorities. It didn't seem very welcoming there.